Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Vraja Janarayana Yashodanandana Vraja Janarayana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Krishna Balaram, Krishna Balaram, Krishna Balaram, Jaya Krishna Balaram. Jaya Radha Samasundar, Radha Samasundar Hare. Jaya Gauranita, 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 Jaya Gauranita. Nitai Gaura Hariba, 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 Hariba. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. जय नम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्य अष्टदर्शक श्रेष्ठ महादेशी भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। इस्कॉन संस्थापकाचार्य श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। नम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्य अष्टदर्शक श्रेष्ठ मद भक्ति सिद्धांत श्री ठाकुर महाराज श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। नमाचार्य श्री हरिदास ठाकुर की प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिर गोवर्धन की जय। श्री वृंदावन मथुरा धाम की जय। श्री मायापुर नवद्वीप धाम की जय। श्री जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की जय। गंगा देवी जमुना देवी की जय। भक्ति देवी की जय। श्री तुलसी महारानी की जय। श्री हरिनाम संकीर्तन की जय। श्री प्रभुपाद ट्रांसजेंडरल बुक डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन की जय। श्री श्री गौर निताई की जय। श्री श्री कृष्ण बलराम की जय। श्री श्री राधा श्याम सुंदर ललिता विशाखा देवी की जय। श्री श्री जगन्नाथ बलदेव सुभद्रा महारानी की जय। समवेत भक्त वृंद की निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरये। नष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तम श्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्ठिकी। मूकं करोति वाचालं पङ्गुलं यते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरुं दीनतारिणे श्रीपरमानन्दमाधवम्। ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपकदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरुन् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सगणरघुनाथ नितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णं चैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपादान् सगणललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितं च। हे कृष्ण करुणा सिन्धु दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिकान्त राधाकान्त नमस्तुते। तप्त कंचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वंशाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। Namo Mahavadannaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gauratise Namah. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaurav Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare. So today is very auspicious day for the members of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, and also at the same time it is also a very auspicious day for the mankind. Today on this day, our great founder Acharya, Srila H.H Bhakti Swami Prabhupada Maharaj, incorporated the International Society for Krishna Consciousness in New York for the benefit of whole mankind. As we all know, that Srila Prabhupada at his advanced age, he started at 69, and on the way, his birthday was there, and he entered 70, completed 69, and entered the age of 70. And he traveled through the sea for 35 days to reach New York and started his mission in the soil of America. Though he had to undergo so much difficulties on the way, heart attacks, seasickness, and all these things he had to go through in his advanced age, but still he did not lose hope, and he was very much determined to pursue the order of his spiritual master. And even if by pursuing the order of his spiritual master he has to leave his body, he was ready for that. So that type of dedication Srila Prabhupada had for the orders of his spiritual master. And as a result, we see that he got the blessings of his Guru Maharaj and the whole parampara, Sri Nityananda Prabhu, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and ultimately Sri Radha and Krishna, to become successful in his mission in a foreign land with foreign people. So, Srila Prabhupada, though he knew only one person in America, he had got a contact from Mathura. One Marwadi family's son was living there. And at first he went there to stay with them for some time. But Srila Prabhupada thought if he would stay there for a longer period, he would not be successful in his mission. he has to go out from the setting of the house, and he has to depend fully on Guru and Krishna and preach to the people of America and see how Krishna reciprocates with him in his mission. That's why he got out from Gopal Agrawal's house and went to New York, and there was also, he got some people in due course of time, so who had suggested him to stay in Bowery, which was a very low-class place where all the drug addicts were there, living, and he has to stay there with one drug addict in his room for a few days. And one night we see that drug addict become very violent towards Srila Prabhupada, and Srila Prabhupada has to leave that place in the middle of the night without bringing his belongings. And he was in the streets in the middle of the night. And he did not know where to go, whom to contact, what to do. This type of situation Srila Prabhupada faced in the beginning. Somehow or other, he had one contact number of Carl. He contacted him, then the Carl invited Srila Prabhupada to his house. But his house was also not a very convenient place for Prabhupada to stay. Because Carl's wife, Eva, was not to Srila Prabhupada. Because she was thinking that Srila Prabhupada was influencing her husband in Krishna consciousness. And the way she wanted to live with her husband would be difficult if Swamiji stays in their house. Though Prabhupada was very accommodative, he did not want to disturb his family life. But still, Srila Prabhupada also did not compromise with his principles. And eventually, some hippies, those who were favorable to Prabhupada, they all had a meeting and they decided to get a place for Swamiji. And they got a place at 26 2nd Avenue in New York at Lower East Side. And they all arranged for 1 month's rent for that place. That was a gift shop which was closed down. So they rented that place. And Prabhupada did not know from where he will get the next month's rent. These boys, they arranged for 1 month's rent only. But Prabhupada was always dependent on Guru and Krishna. So, by Krishna's mercy and Guru Maharaj's mercy, Srila Prabhupada started his Krishna consciousness movement in a very small place in storefront. And he put a signboard in front of the house, that storefront, proclaiming that Bhagavad Gita class would take place 3 days a week. So some people, they were curious to hear from Indian Swami, so they came to him, and there was no place even, no basis and nothing. Srila Prabhupada was sitting on a mat and people were sitting in front of him, few people, and he would sing Jai Radha Madhava and will be immersed in the thoughts of Sri Radha and Krishna, and then he would speak from Bhagavad Gita. So in that way, Srila Prabhupada attracted young people of America, those who were frustrated in the lifestyle, American way of life, and they were looking for something new, something spiritual, which will fulfill their hankering for peace. And from Srila Prabhupada's lecture from Bhagavad Gita, they found that eternal truth which was in Bhagavad Gita, and Srila Prabhupada was speaking to them. So in this way, more and more people came, and Prabhupada also had to undergo so much difficulty to face some drug addicts in between the class who would stand up and raise questions and argue with Prabhupada. So all these things were happening. And Srila Prabhupada was very, very tolerant and depending on Guru and Krishna. And in this way, Srila Prabhupada started his Krishna consciousness movement in America. So at the end of the class, there would be no prasad. Prabhupada would get one apple, cut into many pieces, and take one piece and then give other pieces to the audience. So in that way he started. Then one boy, Keith, I think later on he became Kirtanananda, I think. So he joined Prabhupada. He learned from Prabhupada how to cook. Initially he was assisting him. He was staying with Prabhupada, and Prabhupada would take him to the market to purchase the needs. So in that way he was helping, and then initially he was cooking for Prabhupada, but gradually he started cooking for the devotees who are coming regularly to help Prabhupada. In that way, Prabhupada started his prasad distribution from his own house. And Prabhupada was thinking that small place as the headquarters of his worldwide movement. And he had already thought in his mind a society as International Society for Krishna Consciousness. And Prabhupada could see the future, that this society would spread all over the world. There would be many, many centers, many, many temples, and temples would be filled up with devotees, and books, there will be many, many books, and that will be distributed all over the world, and the whole world would become Krishna conscious. That was the vision of Srila Prabhupada, and he could see the future. That's why, though he was going through so many difficulties, but he did not lose hope, and he carried on with great determination. And after 1 year of his struggle, he became successful to incorporate this International Society for Krishna Consciousness on this day, today, in New York. So today morning we were hearing, Dharmata Prabhu was reading, that this ISKCON word, Srila Prabhupada initially thought a short form, because this was the name of the society was very long, International Society for Krishna Consciousness. So he wanted a short form of this. And Prabhupada jokingly said ISKCON. It came out from his mouth. And it became so famous now, ISKCON is so famous. People don't know, many people don't know International Society for Krishna Consciousness, but they know ISKCON. So these are the words of a pure devotee coming out from his mouth, because he could see the future. That how this Krishna consciousness movement would spread all over the world, and people would be attracted to this movement from all stages of life, from all different kinds of religions. Everyone would take shelter of this movement and make their life successful. So, how this society was registered, because it has some, legally it has to be registered to start the movement. That's why Prabhupada told his followers about this registering of this movement. And then Karl, who was helping Srila Prabhupada from the very beginning, he had a friend, lawyer friend. So Karl actually engaged his advocate friend to prepare the papers for registering this society of International Society for Krishna Consciousness. So we'll read from Prabhupada Lilamrita how things took place gradually. So Prabhupada, Sasuradas Maharaj is writing, he had initiated the legal work of incorporation that spring while still living on the Bowery. So Prabhupada started this incorporation of this society when he was staying in Bowery. He had not moved to 26 Second Avenue by that time. From there he had started this. So Prabhupada had a vision, clear vision, what he was going to do. But even before its legal beginning, he had been talking about his International Society for Krishna Consciousness. And so it had appeared in letters to India and in the Village Voice. So when he was meeting with the reporters after his class, public speech, so he was also mentioning, before it was registered, he was mentioning to reporters about this International Society for Krishna Consciousness, which he was going to form. And also when Prabhupada was writing letters to India, to some of his god brothers and some of the people whom he was expecting they would help him, there also he was mentioning International Society for Krishna Consciousness, already before his incorporation. A friend had suggested a title that would sound more familiar to Westerners, International Society for God Consciousness. But Prabhupada had insisted, Krishna Consciousness. God was a vague term, whereas Krishna was exact and scientific. So some people had suggested Prabhupada that instead of Krishna consciousness, you make God consciousness, so everyone will feel connected. But Prabhupada said, no. This God term is a very vague term, and when you use God, then anyone can say anyone as God. Any demigod can be God, any person as God, anyone can tell anything. This is impersonal. That's why Prabhupada wanted to become very specific, that who is God? And in Srimad Bhagavatam it has been stated, Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam. So Lord Krishna is Swayam Bhagavan. He is God. That's why Prabhupada wanted to let whole world know that Krishna is God. That's why he put International Society for Krishna Consciousness, not God Consciousness. God consciousness was spiritually weaker, less personal. And if Westerners did not know that Krishna was God, then the International Society for Krishna Consciousness would tell them by spreading his glories in every town and village. So that was the intention of Srila Prabhupada. That if people don't know who is God, then International Society for Krishna Consciousness would tell them that Krishna was God. And this should be spread in every town and village. Krishna consciousness was Prabhupada's own rendering of a phrase from Srila Rupa Goswami's Padyavali, written in the 16th century, Krishna Bhakti Rasabhavita Mati. So Prabhupada took this Krishna Bhavana, Krishna consciousness from this Rupa Goswami's this verse. To be observed in the mellow taste of executing devotional service to Krishna. But to register ISKCON legally as a non-profit, tax-exempt religion required money and a lawyer. Carl Jurgens had already gained some experience in forming religious, political and social welfare groups. And when he had met Prabhupada on the Bowery, he had agreed to help. He had contacted his lawyer, Stephen Goldsmith. Stephen Goldsmith, a young Jewish lawyer with a wife and 2 children and an office on Park Avenue, was interested in spiritual movements. When Carl told him about Prabhupada's plans, he was immediately fascinated by the idea of setting up a religious corporation for an Indian Swami. He visited Prabhupada at 26nd Avenue and they discussed incorporation, tax exemption, Prabhupada's immigration status, and Krishna consciousness. Mr. Goldsmith visited Prabhupada several times. Once he brought his children who liked the soup the Swami cooked. Prabhupada had cooked some soup and given to the children of the lawyer and they liked it very much. He began attending the evening lectures. The lawyer started attending Prabhupada's evening lectures, where he was often the only non-hippie member of the congregation. That means all were hippies, only this lawyer was a non-hippie. One evening, having completed all the legal groundwork and being ready to complete the procedure for incorporation, Mr. Goldsmith came to Prabhupada's lecture and kirtan to get signatures from the trustees for the new society. Prabhupada is lecturing. So when lawyer arrived, Prabhupada was lecturing. So Mr. Goldsmith, wearing slacks and a shirt and tie, sits on the floor near the door, listening earnestly to the lecture, despite the distracting noises from the neighborhood. Prabhupada has been explaining how scholars mislead innocent people with non-devotional interpretations of the Bhagavad Gita. And now, in recognition of the attorney's respectable presence, and as if to catch Mr. Goldsmith's attention better, he introduces him into the subject of the talk. So Prabhupada knew Goldsmith was there and he was his lawyer, but all the hippies, those who were in the audience, they did not know. So Prabhupada wanted to draw everyone's attention to Goldsmith, who was his lawyer. So Prabhupada said, I will give you a practical example. Through the lecture, Prabhupada was speaking to the hippies audience. I will give you a practical example of how things are misinterpreted. Just like our president, Mr. Goldsmith, he is pointing out the lawyer. Just like our president, Mr. Goldsmith, he knows expert lawyers by interpretation can do so many things. Then Prabhupada gives his own experience in Calcutta. When I was in Calcutta, there was a rent tax passed by the government, and some expert lawyer changed the whole thing by his interpretation. The government had to reenact a whole law because their purpose was failed by the interpretation of this lawyer. So we are not out for failing the purpose of Krishna, for which the Bhagavad Gita was spoken. But unauthorized persons are trying to fail the purpose of Krishna. Therefore, that is unauthorized. All right, Mr. Goldsmith, you can ask anything. So Prabhupada told the importance of the lawyer's interpretation to the audience. That by interpreting things, lawyers can change anything. So Prabhupada was mentioning about the interpretation of Bhagavad Gita by unscrupulous people. They are interpreting Bhagavad Gita according to their own way, and they are actually failing the real purpose of Krishna by misinterpreting Bhagavad Gita. So anyway, now Prabhupada told Goldsmith that now he can ask whatever he wants to say. Mr. Goldsmith stands, and to the surprise of the people gathered, he makes a short announcement asking for signers on an incorporation document for the Swami's new religious movement. Prabhupada says, they are present here. You can take the addresses now. Mr. Goldsmith, I can take them now? Yes? Prabhupada, yes. You can. Bill, you can give your address. And Raphael, you can give yours. And Don, Roy, Mr. Green, none of our initiated. And they all became trustees of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. So Prabhupada was telling them to give their name and address on the papers. As the meeting breaks up, those called on to sign as trustees come forward, standing around in the little storefront, waiting to leaf cursorily through the pages the lawyer has produced from his thin attach, and to sign as he directs. Yet not a soul among them is committed to Krishna consciousness. So all these trustees, those who are signing the papers, became the first trustees of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, none of them were committed to Krishna consciousness. But Prabhupada has to do this to form his society, worldwide society, with these people in initial time. Mr. Goldsmith meets his quota of signers, a handful of sympathizers with enough reverence towards the Swami to want to help him. So all these trustees, they just wanted to help Prabhupada. They were not committed to Krishna consciousness themselves, but they wanted to help Prabhupada. And since Prabhupada was forming the society, so they became the trustee. The first trustees, this was the condition. The first trustees who will hold office for a year until the first annual meeting of the corporation are Michael Grant, who puts down his name and address without ever reading the document, Mike's girlfriend John, and James Green. No one seriously intends to undertake any formal duties as trustee of the religious society. But they are happy to help the Swami by signing his fledgling society into legal existence. According to law, a second group of trustees will assume office for the second year. They are Paul Garner, Roy and Don. The trustees for the third year are Carl Jurgens, Bill Epstein and Raphael. None of them know exactly what the half a dozen legal size typed pages mean. What were written in the legal document, then none of them knew. They were only signing. Except that Swamiji is forming a society. They only knew that Swamiji is forming the society. They are calling Prabhupada as Swamiji in the beginning. For tax exemption, in case someone gives a big donation, and for other benefits, an official religious society might receive. So Prabhupada has told his lawyers how he should prepare his documents, keeping in mind about tax exemption and other things, because Prabhupada could envision at that time that someone might give a big donation to the society in future. So there should be some provision for tax exemption. So Prabhupada, from that time he could envision this, that there should be a big society and the society would get big donations. But these purposes hardly seem urgent or even relevant to the present situation. Who is going to make donations? Except maybe for Mr. Goldsmith, who has any money, because he has a lot. So people are thinking all are hippies, they are not going to give big donation. If the lawyer Goldsmith may want, he may give. But Prabhupada is planning for the future. Prabhupada was not looking for the present only. And he is planning for much more than just tax exemptions. He is trying to serve his spiritual predecessors and fulfill the scriptural prediction of a spiritual movement that is to flourish for 10,000 years in the midst of the age of Kali. This was the vision of Srila Prabhupada. He was thinking that this movement would continue for 10,000 years. So he was preparing accordingly how this movement would go on for 10,000 years in the midst of Kali Yuga. Within the vast Kali age, a period which is to last 432,000 years, the 1960s are but an insignificant moment. The Vedas describe that the time of the universe revolves through a cycle of 4 seasons or yugas, and Kali Yuga is the worst of times, in which all spiritual qualities of man diminish until humanity is finally reduced to a bestial civilization, devoid of human decency. However, the Vedic literature foretells a golden age of spiritual life, beginning after the advent of Lord Chaitanya and lasting for 10,000 years, an eddy that runs against the current of Kali Yuga, with a vision that soars up to the end of the millennium and beyond, yet with his 2 feet solidly on the ground of Second Avenue. Prabhupada has begun an international society for Krishna consciousness. He has many practical responsibilities: paying the rent, incorporating his society, and paving the way for a thriving worldwide congregation of devotees. Yet, he does not see his humble beginning as limiting the greater scope of his divine mission. He knows that everything depends on Krishna, so whether he succeeds or fails is up to the Supreme. He has only to try. The purposes stated within ISKCON's articles of the incorporation reveal Prabhupada's thinking. There were 7 points, similar to those given in the prospectus for the League of the Devotees he formed in Jhansi, India, in 1953. So in 1953, when Prabhupada formed the League of Devotees at Jhansi, he had also this vision of a worldwide movement and these 7 purposes of ISKCON. He had already mentioned at that time. That attempt had been unsuccessful, yet his purposes remained unchanged. So the 7 purposes of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, which is already in the trust deed of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. So the 7 purposes are there. So number 1, to systematically propagate spiritual knowledge to society at large and to educate all people in the techniques of spiritual life in order to check the imbalance of values in life and to achieve real unity and peace in the world. Number 2, to propagate a consciousness of Krishna as it is revealed in the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. Number 3, to bring the members of the society together with each other and nearer to Krishna, the prime entity, thus to develop the idea within the members and humanity at large that each soul is part and parcel of the quality of Godhead Krishna. Number 4, to teach and encourage the Sankirtan movement, congregational chanting of the holy name of God as revealed in the teachings of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Fifth, to erect for the members and for society at large a holy place of transcendental pastimes dedicated to the personality of Krishna. Six, to bring the members closer together for the purpose of teaching a simpler and more natural way of life. Simple living and high thinking. That was Prabhupada's purpose. 6, to bring the members, okay. 7, with a view towards achieving the aforementioned purposes, to publish and distribute periodicals, magazines, books, and other writings. Regardless of what ISKCON's charter members thought of the society's purposes, Prabhupada saw them as imminent realities. As Mr. Ruben, the subway conductor, who had met Prabhupada on a Manhattan Park bench in 1965, had noted, he seemed to know that he would have temples filled up with devotees. Ruben is giving his experience that how Prabhupada was thinking at that time when ISKCON had not expanded out of 26th Avenue, 2nd Avenue. What Prabhupada was thinking, that he seemed to know that he would have temples filled up with devotees. So Prabhupada was thinking that there would be temples all over the world of his society with full of devotees. There are temples and books. Prabhupada was thinking, and he was telling to him that there are already temples all over the world and books are already there. They are existing. They are there. But the time is separating us from them. It is a matter of time that all these things will be revealed in due course of time. So Prabhupada knew all these things. The first purpose mentioned in the charter was propagation, preaching, was the word Prabhupada most often used. For him, preaching had a much broader significance than mere sermonizing. Preaching meant glorious, selfless adventures on behalf of the Supreme Lord. Lord Chaitanya had preached by walking all over southern India and causing thousands of people to chant and dance with him in ecstasy. Lord Krishna had preached the Bhagavad Gita while standing with Arjuna in his chariot on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Lord Buddha had preached, Lord Jesus had preached, and all pure devotees preach. ISKCON's preaching would achieve what the League of Nations and the United Nations has failed to achieve: real unity and peace in the world. ISKCON workers would bring peace to a world deeply afflicted by materialism and strife. They would systematically propagate spiritual knowledge, knowledge of the non-sectarian science of God. It was not that a new religion was being born in July of 1966. Rather, the eternal preaching of Godhead, known as Sankirtan, was being transplanted from east to west. The society's members would join together, and by hearing the teachings of Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, and by chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, they would come to realize that each was a spirit soul, eternally related to Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They would then preach this to humanity at large, especially through Sankirtan, the chanting of the holy name of God. ISKCON would also erect a holy place of transcendental pastimes dedicated to the personality of Krishna. Was this something beyond the storefront? Yes. He never thought small. He seemed to know that he would have temples filled up with devotees. He wanted ISKCON to demonstrate a simple, more natural way of life. Such a life, Prabhupada thought of the villages of India, where people lived just as Krishna had lived, was most conducive to developing Krishna consciousness. And all 6 of these purposes would be achieved by the 7th. ISKCON would publish and distribute literature. This was the special instruction Srila Bhakti Saraswati Thakur had given to Srila Prabhupada. He had specifically told him one day in 1932 at Radhakund in Vrindavan, if you ever get any money, publish books. Certainly, none of the signers saw any immediate shape of the Swami's dream. Yet, these 7 purposes were not simply theistic rhetoric invented to convince a few New York state government officials. Prabhupada meant to enact every item in the charter. Of course, he was now working in extremely limited circumstances. The principal place of worship located at 26 Second Avenue in the city, county, and state of New York was the sole headquarters for the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Yet, Prabhupada insisted that he was not living at 26 Second Avenue, New York City. His vision was transcendental. His Guru Maharaj had gone out from the traditional holy places of spiritual meditation to preach in cities like Calcutta, Bombay, and Delhi. And yet, Prabhupada would say that his spiritual master had not really been living in any of those cities, but was always in Vaikuntha, the spiritual world, because of his absorption in devotional service. Similarly, the place of worship, 26 Second Avenue, was not a New York storefront, a former curiosity shop. The storefront and the apartment had been spiritualized and were now a transcendental heaven. Society at large could come here. The whole world could take shelter here, regardless of race or religion, plain, small, and impoverished as it was. Prabhupada regarded the storefront as a holy place of transcendental pastimes, dedicated to the personality of Krishna. It was a world headquarters, a publishing house, a sacred place of pilgrimage, and a center for which an army of devotees could issue forth and chant the holy names of God in all the streets in the world. The entire universe could receive Krishna consciousness from the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, which was beginning here. Jai Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. International Society for Krishna Consciousness ki Jai. Jai Gaurav Bhakta Vrinda ki Jai. Jai Sri Gaurav Nitai ki Jai. Jai Sri Krishna Balaram ki Jai. Jai Sri Radha Shyam Sundar Lalita Vishagadevi ki Jai. Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol.